The Wuhan supervirus continues its rampage. This virus has every feature of a bioweapon, every feature that you would want. The victims become contagious in 2 to 3 days, and they remain contagious 14 days after they're infected. That means there's a quick ramp up when it comes to this style of epidemic. If in 2 or 3 days they become contagious, that means they're infecting people in 2 or 3 days, and those people are infecting people in 2 or 3 days, and those people are infecting people in 2 or 3 days. And, the Chinese must be wondering whether or not they should nuke Wuhan right now. We don't know how deadly this virus is, and we don't know if these cases that they've miraculously cured wouldn't have been cured by themselves anyways. And it's not because they come on television and say, well, their antiviral drugs work, that it's going to work for everyone. But it certainly gives us hope out there, ladies and gentlemen, that they already have a vaccine, like the movie Outbreak. But will they nuke a city to stop this outbreak? How many countries right now are thinking about nuking Wuhan, and some of these, other cities perhaps that are heavily infected? And we're getting reports that, body bags are just being shipped off to the crematorium. These are local reports from numerous sources. And, you have to wonder if they're just not, starting to execute or planning to execute people that are showing symptoms to try and, derail this epidemic. And it may come down to that, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, right now they've done everything but that to try and stop the spread. And the question is, will anything stop this virus? Will anything stop this Wuhan super virus? And, countries out there which are heavily impacted are probably considering just about everything right now. And we'll just have to see, how far does it go. But the numbers right now are just blowing away the models that we saw in the early days that were estimating 250 million people killed worldwide. We displayed some of those models in the earlier broadcast, and we're way ahead of schedule. This thing is, much faster, spreading much faster than anybody would have anticipated. And I think that's, the least we can say about the situation right now, ladies and gentlemen. And, if you wanted to make a bioweapon, a must-have is a real short incubation period, as short as possible, as well as having, other possibilities. We'll get into that. But having a short incubation period of 2 or 3 days means that this thing can spread through a city in a matter of, days, a big city in a week, and infect just about everyone. Now, the blowback to a short incubation period is that it can burn out rather quickly. If you can isolate, an epidemic region, city, block, building, whatever, then it should burn out in a week or so. But, the problem here with this virus, here's the back door, is that people are contagious at least 14 days after the infection begins, even if they are released from the hospital and think they're cured. And this came out in the New England Journal of Medicine, still a very high viral load in the people that are cured. So they're still contagious. The question is, they might not be coughing and sneezing everywhere, but they can still shed the virus even in fecal clouds. And we're learning about this now. You might think that's ridiculous, but in fact, farts, ladies and gentlemen, spread this virus. The person next to you could just let one loose, and all of a sudden you have the Wuhan super virus. No kidding. Not only that, public restrooms, anytime you smell, the bathroom smells, those are fecal clouds, ladies and gentlemen, and they contain coronavirus. And this coronavirus kills. It's like the drop dead virus. We're seeing people drop dead from this virus like never before. How's everybody doing out there? You ready for the Super Bowl? People out there in China are ready for the Super Bowl. They're trying to make it to your Super Bowl party. Will you invite them over, ladies and gentlemen? But no joke, this is a serious situation. This is like Resident Evil over there. We should be trying to do what we can in sending, AIDS medication out there, because it seems like it's some kind of, weaponized mix with AIDS. It's like AIDS, airborne AIDS floating around that gives you a heart attack and sudden acute respiratory arrest. So what a cookie, what a treat for 2020. The New World Order has been too kind, releasing this into the wild, and it's turned into a wildfire out there in Asia. Who done it, ladies and gentlemen? In this day and age, anybody can theoretically boot up a virus. It's rather easy. It's too easy, in fact. You thought the ghost guns and the 3D printing was bad. You should see what they can do with molecular biology these days. And just about anybody can send in their, virus, homemade virus to be cultured in a lab and sent back for study. So, it's kind of surprising that this hasn't actually happened already. And whose lab is it? Who done it? I think that's, going to be the next question scientists are going to be looking at here. But this drop-dead virus is basically made, large cities into a dead zone. Body bags everywhere, the incinerators on full blast, the crematorium on full blast. People are escaping. It's panic. I mean, right now you're probably feeling pretty good where you're at, watching it on television. But if you were in Asia right now, donning the mask and thinking every cough is the virus, you know what I mean, watching people drop dead around you like it's a horror movie, you'd be thinking twice about this situation. So we should have a lot of compassion here. There's nothing funny about what's going on with this particular event. But beware of the Super Bowl parties out there, because chances are this virus is already on the rampage in our country. And, these Super Bowl parties, just like crowded areas, will become super spreader events. So the key is slow inoculation. Lower your viral load, your dose. There's probably no evading this virus, really. So what you don't want is to take a deep breath of somebody, coughing out this virus, or a deep breath of somebody's, virus-loaded farts, literally. And so you just want to beware, just like you should be aware of the Elon Musk death grid that's coming online, the Starlink. It's going to be blasting everybody with this 5G. And of course, we've been talking about the links between EMF and immunosuppression, which makes every virus more deadly, more effective. And I think people should consider taking down these death towers if the virus outbreaks hardcore in America, because these death towers are going to be facilitating the outbreak. Guaranteed. It's not helping. And that's the same thing with the Wi-Fi, the works. EMF, basically damages your white blood cells, and it lowers your white blood cell count. And that's a whole nother story, but everybody should be doing some research on that and limiting their exposure. We recommend getting an EMF meter out there. Shop around, get the one that you think works best for you. The El Cheapo from Home Depot doesn't measure the death towers out there. It measures static electric fields, so you usually have to spend at least $200-300. We got one for $100 on our website. You might think that's rather ridiculous, but in fact, it's the best one for the money that we found. Otherwise, we'd be, offering you something else. But check that out on our website, stfnreport.com. Anyways, getting back to the big news, the Wuhan supervirus is still on a rampage. It looks like a bioweapon, ladies and gentlemen. It has every feature of a bioweapon that you would want. A 2 to 3 day incubation period. Now, this will vary. I mean, everybody's different. Everybody's got different thresholds and the like. But we're seeing cases right now, 2 to 3 days. In 2 or 3 days, they were actually beginning to shed the virus themselves, and other people were getting infected. And people up to 14 days after, they were contaminated, were still shedding the virus, and perhaps longer. And this virus will basically transfect through every known possibility, whether it be aerosolized like the flu, whether it be touching and the like, as well as sexual transmission, as well as the bathroom routes. So this thing spreads every which way, and it spreads fast, very fast. It's been engineered that way, ladies and gentlemen. That was day one over there in China. I think everybody would want to go back to that if they could right now. And it's, starting to look like that within our shores. People should pay attention. This virus has got a 3-week head start on everybody. It's like the movie Outbreak, but so much worse, in a sense. Because the virus here really is, beyond one town. And this is why they nuked the town, so that we wouldn't have something like this. And now we have something like this. It's like it's beyond the town. It's like, it's going to be everywhere here pretty soon. And it's just that they haven't picked it up. They're not testing for it really in the wild as far as we know, which is something they should be doing. But, there's just right now nothing really put in place to mitigate the spread. And it took China about 2 months to go from the very first cases recorded by their CDC to where it is today. And, if we were just to kind of forecast, and these models will change, as often as they can. But, with all the seeds that blew in from Asia and the like, I mean, the UK right now is looking for at least 400 or 500, if not, 2,000 people directly from Wuhan at the height of the epidemic. Right now, they're just like, lost in the UK, hiding. And, if the UK has like 400 to 2,000 of, people from Wuhan at the height of the epidemic, how many people are in America right now? So chances are, this thing is probably like, halfway there already to becoming, like another China syndrome. And really what's going on over there, it's like Fukushima. It's like, Chernobyl, really. It's at that scale, and worse even, because, the death toll is just going to keep climbing from here on out. And, people, right now in the neighboring countries of this epicenter are freaking out. And, rightfully so, ladies and gentlemen. But this virus, again, has every feature you would want of a bioweapon. And, people can argue which bioweapon it came from. They can argue, who did it. But right now it's out there and it's growing. And look, they say that they got a cure already, kind of like the movie Outbreak. It's just sitting there in the freezers, but that's only going to work as long as it doesn't mutate into something else. This thing is now in so many people. There's such a huge virus reservoir out there that, this thing may mutate into something else. It's already like airborne AIDS and SARS and the flu mixed together. Literally, that's it. That's why, their influenza antivirals and HIV antivirals are working on this concoction, on this engineered strain from Wuhan, because it's a mix, it's a hybrid. Now, scientists are going to want to argue, some of the mechanics of antivirals and the like, but it seems rather coincidental that we've got some cut and paste HIV insertions in the code of the Wuhan virus, and that the HIV drugs work for it. What a coincidence. And of course the tweaks on the virus are to make it, more infectious. And it's, the tweaks, give the spikes of the virus, the super ability to enter the cells and to spread like wildfire. And it turns like, the organism into its own little mini epidemic. You're an organism of, trillions of cells, basically. And it starts, at one little location, and it spreads like wildfire. And, your organism basically suffers an epidemic. That spills over into the next person. It's like dominoes. It's rather, this is definitely a bioweapon. Whether it's, natural or, synthetic, this thing is a bioweapon. And it's out there, devastating Asia right now. Will it be as bad as America? I think that's like, will America be as bad as Asia? I think that's like the next debate to have, given population density and perhaps other standards of living. People could argue that it won't be as bad here, but, that's really hard to say. This thing spreads like the flu, and you can see that, plenty of people get the flu every year. Right now, tons of schools are shut down mysteriously because of it. And, if it spreads like the flu, I don't think it really matters if, your standards of living are, much better, really. So it may help a little bit, but I think we can expect to see something similar. And it would be nice to know that they're testing, hospitals and the like randomly, testing people randomly to see if they have this strain of the virus. Because we already know that, it probably is here, spreading like the first weeks in China. And all of a sudden, you're going to hear of a few cases, getting back to this graphic, if we can, we're going to hear about a few cases, and then a few more, and a few more. Wow, the video guy is fucking fired. Ladies and gentlemen, live television, how's everybody doing out there? We'll get back into where we were going. Just want to give a big shout out to everybody in the audience if this live feed is still going. Looks like you guys are out there. What's going on? So J Hart, Rune, Thinker, PCB, Fellow, how's everybody doing out there? Matthew, DD, DJ, Maria, Rachel, Dennis, Victor, Aaron, Sheepdog, Scrappy D, Political Puppet Theater, Owl Oracle. Much love to everybody out there. But yeah, we were going to get into, what this is going to look like in theory. If I had to just kind of like, put something out there based on probability that's, realistic, we could start seeing, first human to human transmissions in, a handful of cities within a couple of weeks. And before you know it, the whole thing is just going to like blow up like it did in China. And then it's too late. I mean, this kind of thing, you want to be way ahead of it, And obviously they're not messing around over there. They locked everything down like it's the end of the world, like it escaped the lab. And, they're hiding so much right now. I think this is an important point. They're hiding so much right now in terms of the numbers and, how bad this virus is. And I think it's because if the world knew how bad this virus is, they would all be sending their ICBMs there like immediately. But it's too late, It's too late. I mean, this shit is like, well, it's out there. But the world does have a problem. This nuclear reactor is still, spewing viruses out there. And before long, I mean, you're going to see, the Chinese probably hijack cargo ships and land somewhere like D-Day, and you'll see them all running for the hills, you know what I mean? And you can't blame them. And of course, these people are highly intelligent, so you really can't rule anything out at this stage. They'll be showing up everywhere. And we're already seeing signs of the mass exodus, and that's going to be the next wave, So, but you would expect, most of the refugees landing in, in neighboring countries, at least the ones that haven't yet locked down their borders. And then what happens? How do you stop 1.5 billion people from escaping their country? The video guy, you just can't. And that's kind of problematic, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? But disturbing new video continues to surface. The drop dead syndrome, as it's being referred to out there, is worse than just some kind of flu. We're of course getting information that this is a hybrid strain with HIV functions as far as being able to infect. It's like airborne AIDS floating around out there, spreading like the flu, and giving people heart attacks and pneumonia. So, and some serious internal damage. I think, no matter what models, no matter what scenario, beyond this thing just burning out, at first it'll look like, the authorities, have got it covered. Everything's going to be okay. They're like, here are the emergency centers, here are the numbers to call and all of that. And as, the first cases kind of appear at the hospitals and, they're going to get their treatment and, it's going to look promising, like, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. But then all of a sudden, the real waves are going to come in. There's not enough supplies for everybody. Now we're starting to see the drop dead syndrome, in Western countries, and people are starting to panic and they lock down cities. It's martial law. Wait for your vaccine. We're here to help you, kind of stuff. This could degenerate rather quickly. We advise people to kind of, begin to prepare, start heading towards the exits a little bit, go stock up on stuff that you're going to use anyways, masks, and the like. But besides masks, soap and water and toilet paper, and the like. But, yeah, I think that's probably a very prudent bit of advice. Avoid crowds. More than likely it's already spreading like the flu out there. And chances are, you won't be severely impacted by this virus. 4 out of 5 people really don't experience severe symptoms, but they are infectious. And for up to 14 days after that. So that's the thing, is that most people really aren't going to even really know that they've been contaminated. They'll just end up being kind of like a node on the network, and kind of like one of these botnets, right? And regardless, 10 to 20% of the people out there are going to get killed by this virus. So we'll just have to see, if it burns out. In a couple weeks, we might just be reporting that, this thing is burned out and it is just only devastated Asia, and they've lost, who knows how many people. And that's still a cause for concern. And I think the more that we do to help the situation over there, the better the world will be, long term. Because as long as they're shedding virus, that's bad for business. And this is going to have a huge toll, on the world economy, soon. It's going to be like, perhaps the Great Depression soon, because all of a sudden, the factories over there have completely, shut. Business over there is completely stopped. And if that happens over here, how long do you think, this fiat system is gonna last before it collapses? And so there's no telling, how, bad this is going to spiral out of control. But one thing's for sure, if you don't apply pressure on the authorities to do everything they can do to stop this thing, these people will just have you walking right into the shitstorm. They don't care. They've got their deep underground military bases. They've got their supplies. They're not worried about what happens to the common person out there. But I think people really need to start, phoning their congressmen, representatives, their city council, whatever. What are you doing, to prepare? And why aren't you doing more? And look, numerous countries have declared a health emergency. The World Health Organization has declared an international health emergency over this. So, there's reason to call in and go, what have you done? Are you guys testing anywhere? What are the test results? How much of it out there is coronavirus? How much of it is the flu? And start demanding results and start holding people accountable. But, if you just kind of go another week or 2 weeks pretending like this thing isn't out there, we're going to have a real nasty surprise. Getting back to the big breaking news, this Wuhan supervirus is still on the rampage. 15,000 people infected so far, and the numbers are, certainly much, much higher than that. And this just blows away every model out there. And right now, at least most models, maybe somebody has predicted worse. But we could bring up the graph where you just see this thing just go vertical. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. Let's see if we can bring this graphic up. Comparing it to SARS, which was, bad. This thing literally in the same amount of days after the outbreak was first detected, this thing just went vertical in terms of cases in comparison. And it's worldwide now. And if this replicates in other countries like, it did in China, we've got a whole nother China syndrome on our hands. And, every, city or county or state or country that becomes a Wuhan or a China becomes a huge virus reservoir. And that's just going to make it even more difficult to bring things back to normal. Because, if, this starts shutting down countries entirely, there goes your job, there goes your paycheck. And some people out there aren't going to be affected, but most Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and their credit cards can only go so far, and it won't be long before you think it's bad now in the ghetto. Just wait until the ghetto spills over and starts going Mad Max, hub and spoke on the neighboring towns, like they did back in the medieval ages. Rape and pillage. That was big business back then. It might be coming back in style with this new world order weaponized super virus that has the inserts of HIV to make it more infectious. I mean, you just couldn't make this stuff up. This virus has every feature of a bioweapon that you could possibly want. It's stealthy, it's highly infectious, 2 to 3 day incubation period. People are infectious 14 days, after being contaminated. That means a quick ramp up and a sustained spread. I mean, it's got everything. This virus has its cake and it eats it too. And when it sees crowds, that's like lunchtime for the virus, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, these death towers make the virus even more infectious. This has been proven for decades, that EMF radiation weakens the immune system and makes you more susceptible to even the common cold. And this is why they're like, here, come get your vaccine, to make up for the death towers. But, these death towers are just going to make the whole situation so much worse, as if it isn't bad enough with their eugenics programs out there. They're poisoning the food, the air, the water supply. You got the fluoride, you got the pesticides, and you got the death towers, the mandated vaccines. I mean, it used to be you didn't know anybody with autism. Now everybody's got an autistic kid pretty much, and it's only getting worse. I mean, the whole world is pretty much whacked right now, and we're off the right track, ladies and gentlemen. We're headed towards Mordor or some hell on earth kind of scenario. And we've been following another viral outbreak that isn't getting as much attention, but it's the DEV virus, and it literally turns people into demonic looking creatures that exhibit signs of rabies and other phenomena. And I think we've got some video of that. We've covered that in our video archives. Be sure to check that out in the video section. But let's see if we can pull out some of these videos. They're somewhere where you can see for yourself. I mean, clearly these people are going demonic. And, early symptoms include photophobia, afraid of the light. That's ironic, isn't it? But, they also will exhibit other symptoms that we're probably not going to get into everything right now. But it's basically like a demonic they live. These people on television, your politicians, pick your country, they're all co-opted by this virus, by this dark matrix that basically works like a hive mind. They are legion, ladies and gentlemen. And the Bible has been describing this phenom for thousands of years. Here's some of the videos, of your world leaders all exhibiting the signs and symptoms. Let's see if we can... the video guy is not cooperating. The Matrix is hacking us right now, ladies and gentlemen. But here you've probably seen this video before. This was the attempted coup d'etat in America, and you got the demonic right there, like pleading its case, like you can't see it for what it is. You know what I mean? And it gets worse because basically Europe is heavily infected as far as we can tell. And every world leader that showed up pretty much for this London NATO summit in December 2019, were exhibiting the symptoms and the signs, the DEV virus. And we'd like to develop some blood tests for that. As for the time being, you just have to look at them, and we've applied enhancements so that you can see their features, but you can see their features more, but they're there, regardless. But you have to be aware of the television. They use filters to make people look younger and airbrush, blemishes and the like. So, people can sit there and argue all they want. We've covered this in quite a bit of detail in the Dark Matrix series, and you can just kind of browse through the video section and check out the thumbnails. We'll probably have to leave it there for this broadcast. We've been going on for 35 minutes now. But we'll try and do another update here. I mean, the weekend, everything, as far as the news business is concerned, everybody's, pretty much, taking the day off. So you probably haven't seen a whole lot of reports today or yesterday on the super virus. And I think that's to keep people dormant for the Super Bowl, give people one last little weekend to enjoy their pitiful little lives before they start announcing the bad news. Right? So feel free to like and share and mirror this content. Subscribe. Check us out on the fake book, Stranger Than Fiction News, STFN Report. Actually, it's STFN Reloaded now. We've been censored and banned so much. You can't imagine why this New World Order doesn't want us to broadcast. But we keep coming back, bitches. And, we've still got the best community in town. I can't imagine being, one of these libtards watching, MTV or the Grammys or some kind of Hollywood movie, right? Till the next time, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, you are